Hi, thank you for tuning in to 12 Step Up. My name is Richie. I'm here with Tiffany, my wife. We've been married for almost 7 years. So, this is our first episode. And the reason I decided to do this show is to bring awareness to alcoholism and drug addiction. But we're doing it a little different than what you're used to. So, anyways, Tiffany.
Hi. I have been in recovery from alcohol and drugs for over 7 years, and that's why my husband decided to use me as the first interview for the 12th Step Up podcast and YouTube channel.
Well, we make a great team. So,
I'd like to think so.
yes. So let's talk about your life. Let's talk about how how's your life now, right now. Like, how would you rate your life from what it used to be like before you got into recovery?
It is infinitely better, I can say that for sure. When I first got here, as you know, so you guys don't know, I wanted I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to die, in short. And now I don't. And that is the very broad explanation.
I mean, the reason I asked you that is because we're going to get into how bad it was for you.
Okay.
Um, so I just wanted to give an overview of what your life is now, as opposed to what it was.
Gotcha.
So,
So now I am a happily married wife. I have stepkids. I have my own biological child. I have a job that I really enjoy. I get to see my family and not feel like a disappointment, like a total disappointment. Um, I I'm happy within myself.
I think that's the one thing that we're all looking for when we first come into recovery. We're not happy with ourselves, and we just kind of like hate ourselves and hate our lives.
I sure did.
So let's talk about how recovery was introduced to you.
Uh, well, it's a funny story actually, kind of, I guess. I
Funny for us, but not for other people, I guess.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I was um trying to be in a relationship with somebody and he didn't want me back. And that was the first time I had an unrequited love, I guess you could call it. But he was in the program and or in a program, I should say. And he said he didn't feel like God wanted him to be in a relationship with me, and I already was kind of on the outs with God. I didn't really have a great feeling with God and all that fun stuff, but it kind of planted a seed so that almost 2 years or a year and a half after that, when I was in an institution for um, helping people not kill themselves. They brought in panels of.
Wait, how did you get into that institution? What led you to go to that institution?
Oh well, I jumped into a couple other different relationships, and one of them was simply to supply me with alcohol, and I knew that. The other person did not, and so when I tried to cut things off because my anxiety got so bad, I just wanted to die. I didn't know what to do, and so I just knew I had to change something. And so typically, when that had happened before, I would just stop drinking. And so I tried to break it off with him. He did not like that, and we got caught in a court case. It was labeled as domestic violence just because we had a previous relationship, but um, it was simply because I was scared. And it was partly because I wanted to kill myself that my parents helped me find through my doctor a place to send me, and partly because I didn't feel safe going back to my apartment and back to my old job and stuff. And that's how I ended up in that institution. And they brought in the panels for anonymous groups. And I realized as people were sharing. It was like a panel, like my specific light bulb moment was like it was this one panel of middle-aged alcoholic men that one of them was sharing about how he had like liver disease or pancreatic cancer, something like that. And I was like, "Hey, I had pancreatitis when I was 22."
That's pretty
except
cool.
except he was like 45, and I was like thinking, like I think I might have a problem with alcohol. And so I just kind of started paying more attention to those, and um, one thing led to another, and I was actually the one who sought out a treatment center.
So what you just said right now is pretty. A lot of people, a lot of us that have problems, we don't actually seek out help. It usually our family, our
Yeah,
friends, or whatever that are very concerned about us, and
yeah,
they're usually the ones to tell us, "I think you need help," right?
yeah. I mean, a couple people had mentioned it before, but I was like, no, I'm fine. Like,
Right, right.
I can do it myself. But obviously, I couldn't. And then when I heard those stories that were so similar to mine, I was like, oh, okay. I was in a place of desperation and willingness that I had never been in before, and I think that kind of also opened up my eyes. So,
Okay, okay. So you went to a treatment center. Just how was your experience there?
um, it was terrifying. I couldn't believe that I was the one that chose that for myself, to go, like,
Like you
literally.
sentenced yourself,
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
right?
'Cause, literally, as soon as I first walked in and, like, checked in, and I like to, like, sketch and draw and doodle, and, like, so I had, like, a big bag of, like, those tiny little, like, Crayola markers and stuff, and the intake lady, the nurse looks at me and she's like, "Oh my god. What was your drug of choice? It wasn't heroin, was it? Am I gonna have to dig through this whole baggie and open all these markers?"
That's so funny.
So yeah, it was definitely a new experience. I'd never been in jail. I'd never even been thrown in the drunk tank. Like nothing. I never got caught on anything before. So this was my first time actually in institutions of any sort, and so it was very terrifying being there. But
Did you embrace it? Like as soon as you got there, did you embrace it, or were you like hesitant about the whole, treatment facility, or were you how did you feel?
I think I was embraced first before I embraced it. And
I've heard that before.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. And so when I walked into, we had an in-house meeting with all the girls or females, and at the very end when they were saying, I think it was the Lord's Prayer, I just broke down. I was just like I was just crying. Like I just felt my soul was in the right spot. That even though I was scared, I was doing the right thing for myself, and it was terrifying. And those women, like, they gathered around me. They're like, "I got you." I was the same way, and I was like, "Really?" Because you just mentioned you just did like a 6 month stint in jail, and I like for like,
But isn't it true that a lot of our bottoms they're different, but they're very similar?
yeah, mine was very different. That I didn't lose a lot of
Right,
physical
right.
things because I didn't even have them to begin with. But I lost my soul. I lost sight of who I was.
Yeah.
I lost sight of the reason why I was living. And I hated myself. I wanted to die. I tried to die. Apparently I'm really shitty at killing myself. So
How long were you in this treatment center?
I turned a 29-day program into 45 days because I am a good student like
You're
that.
an overachiever.
Yeah.
You look like a teacher's pet.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome. So, okay, so you finish the program, and then after you finish the program, what happens?
So, I mean, it's different for everybody, right?
Right.
But for me, I looked up, and the counselors helped me find a sober living home for women that was close by to where I was living at the time, or like closest to like my parents and stuff. And I stayed there. It was a house with 13 women total, and
13 women, guys.
in 3 bedrooms. So I was in a bedroom with 3 other women, so I was top bunk in a 2 bunk room, and it was all shared bathrooms and everything. It was not my most favorite living situation, but it was the best with what I had at the time.
That was what you needed at the time.
Yes, it got me out of my apartment. It got me away from my parents. Not that they're bad or anything like that. They just didn't understand, and I needed that a little extra. Um, what's the word?
Push,
Accountability.
accountability.
Yes.
I don't like that word
I wonder why.
because I don't like accountability.
Yeah. Okay.
But
That's a whole other topic. So
but
let's.
fortunately, with these anonymous groups, we learn
Yeah.
that accountability is everything.
I needed it. I
So,
was 24, but I was a child inside. I did not know how to adult at all.
well, how many 24-year-olds do you know that actually know how to be productive members? Whether they have a, it's
I mean, there's a good amount of people I hear. I don't know. But
exactly. I don't know either. So okay, so how long are you there?
at the sober living house,
Yes,
a couple months, maybe a month, two tops. I was one of those that I thought self knowledge was going to save me. I'm a very smart person. I have all this knowledge now. I know what to do. Like, I have a home group that I see all the time. I have service positions, like I help out, and like I, but that's how I was used to living, right? Like, I knew just how to act and how to play the role because I knew what people were looking for on the outside. For me
right.
to say I had those things, I have a sponsor, I have a home group, I have a service position, I'm doing all the things. But deep inside, I was still me.
Yeah, you're still
And
hurting.
yeah, and I found myself back on a bar stool after a few months of sobriety.
So when you found yourself at the bar stool, how long were you back at the bar stool for?
I was just out that day. It just took me one day sitting there with the knowledge that I had, thinking, how the hell did I end up here again? And like that tape kind of ran through of, well, I got kicked out of my sober living house. I'm too prideful to go back to my family. I don't have my old apartment to go back to because I'm really good at burning bridges, and I burned a bridge that in hindsight, I'm sad that I did, but at the time, those were my coping mechanisms. That's what I did best. And I knew it was only a matter of time because of what I'd heard in different meetings and stuff. I knew it was only a matter of time before I was on the street. And that sense of dread and desperation came back again and just sat like an elephant on my chest. And I knew I just
So
had to.
you're back at the bar stool, and so then what happens? You go back to the home you were at, or what exactly do you do?
So I had a friend
Hmm,
that he had actually just dropped me back off a couple hours away from where he lived to my house, well, my city. And I'll just tell a story.
fine, tell
Okay.
the story.
We were texting, and he tried to call me, and I ignored his call, and I said, you don't want to talk to me right now. And that was code for I'm drunk. And he knew it.
Yeah,
I knew
obviously,
it.
obviously, when somebody says that, that's because they're obviously doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and
But also, this
yeah,
was my best friend. So he already knew. Like, this was, and we had just met in recovery, and we just bonded. And he was like, after a little while, I did talk to him on the phone. I stepped out of the bar. He said, I want you to walk away right now. Just walk away. I'm turning the car around. Go down to the street where your meeting's at and meet me there. If you're not there by the time I get there, I'm gone. And I knew he was serious. And I went in. Well, no, I did not go back in because I'm really good at following directions, remember? Um, and I started walking back to the meeting. because I left a meeting to go to the bar and popped a handful of pills on my way. And so that I was nice and slurry by the time I got there. And I sat my ass there for the next hour and a half or so until my friend arrived. And well, in the meantime, I did have a sponsor at the time. She walked me back to that bar to pay my tab because I was like, oh, I'll have a financial amends to make. And she's like, the hell you will. You're going to go pay it right now. And I'm going to walk you over there and do it.
An honest drunk, am I right?
Yeah, I know. So after they left, though, I popped a few more pills while I was waiting because, why not? But yeah, and then came, got me, drove me back to his sister's house a couple hours away. I stayed in her garage. Um, I sobered up, and the next day I went to a meeting and announced myself as a newcomer again. And there was an old timer sitting at the table across from us, and he kind of called me over after. He's like, "Hey, like, good to see you. I'm glad you came right back." And I was like, "Me too." And he was like, I see you sitting over there, just beating the shit out of yourself." And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, I just relapsed. Like, that was really stupid." He was like, "Just cut that out. Don't do it. Like, you're never gonna stay sober if you keep beating the shit up out of yourself." And I listened. That I remember that, and I tell other newcomers that, like, that come in from relapses, because that helped me stay sober. Like, that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Some people that doesn't sit very well, but for some it does.
I mean, it takes what it
Obviously,
takes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's fast forward to 6 months from that time.
Oh.
What happened then?
Oh. Well, it was my wedding day. So, spoiler alert, the best friend who picked me up was this guy. Um, and we moved into a co-ed sober living together and shared a room, and then apparently we were in a relationship before either of us knew it.
What a thunk,
Yeah. Oops.
right?
And that's not typically suggested. Like,
No,
we heard that
it's
forever
highly
and
not
ever.
suggested.
And it's true, because if we were not in that house with the other couples trying to get sober and stay sober like we were, I don't think we would have made it, honestly.
Yeah, because there's that word again, accountability.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I don't like that word
It was,
because
yeah. Oh, yeah,
yeah,
because it gave you the life you have now.
right,
Right.
right, right.
But suggestions are suggestions. There's nowhere in the text of the program that we work that says you're not allowed. The only thing I know I cannot do is drink or use drugs. And I'm a completely different person when I do. And so it was rough, but I knew I loved you, and we decided we wanted similar goals in life, and one of the top ones was just being and staying sober. And on my 6 month sober date was our wedding, and
Go big or go home.
apparently, but yeah, that's not recommended, but it worked for us.
Okay, so you're married and now you're like doing adult things.
We're married, but yeah.
Well, I guess we're married. So now you're doing adult things, and
Mhm.
how is adulting going? How is like
Oh,
responsibility
yeah.
and all the accountability, because now it's not just yourself, but now you have a partner.
Right.
How are things going?
Touch and go, like, in some regards, as like in being a relationship, obviously it's hard to learn to live with someone else and learn their quirks or what they like and what they don't like, or if they roll the toothpaste up from the bottom, or if they squeeze it like a
Yeah.
psychopath from the middle, or things like that, to learning how to pay bills on time, to buying a car, to finding a new job.
So
It's hard.
I think
It's
for
hard.
you, it must have been a little more challenging because this husband, myself,
Right.
came with kids
Yes.
from two previous relationships.
Yes.
So now you're a stepmom, and
Right.
Now,
and step nana.
and yeah, that's right. And
So I was a nana before I was a mama, and
yeah,
that's like one of my greatest
so not only are you changing yourself
achievements. Yes.
for you, but you're also adapting to a life of being a wife, stepmom, and a grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but obviously, you're pulling through. So you're there, you're doing the things to keep the things. Um, you want to tell me a little bit more about like what it's been like, how it's been. So you guys are in the sober living. What happens? Do you want to tell me what happens after the sober living?
Well, we moved out to our first apartment. Um, Richie's youngest son moves in with us, and like right after the wedding, and that was great. He's here behind the camera, and
He's my producer.
yeah, uh, it was hard. It's hard learning boundaries of stepmom because I have a lot of love in my heart, and I I've always wanted to treat the stepkids like my own, but their mothers are still in their life, and so I'm not sole mother figure. And I got a mouth on me. Sometimes I say shit that like it comes out wrong or is interpreted wrong, or um, it's hard. Um, it's worth it, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I've learned a lot about myself, and also now being a mother to our child, um, it's taught me a lot of your previous relationships of the kids as moms, of their struggles and stuff too, and teaching me to be more empathetic
Yeah, so you're
with,
more understanding.
yeah, with having another woman be in the kids' life and things like that. And so it's hard. I've learned a lot of hard lessons, and I know they're not done. That's for sure. But I like to think I've grown.
So just give me a brief timeline of like from that point to where you are now.
From like our first apartment.
Yes.
In what regard?
And you know, in your recovery and your home life and your career.
Okay. I um, I've progressed. I've grown a lot. I've learned how to set boundaries for myself, and I'm not always perfect at it. Obviously, he'll be the first one to tell you that. But um, when I first came into this program, I was a doormat, and sometimes I'll say in meetings, like I'm a recovering alcoholic and a recovering doormat because that's what I did. I learned through childhood experiences that, or felt I learned, interpreted that being humble and being selfless meant letting other people walk all over you
Yeah,
and
you know
make
what
other people happy before myself instead of filling my own cup before spilling out onto others.
I hear that a lot in meetings in my recovery program that a lot of people come in feeling like they were doormats, and this is men and women. Um, but the fact of the matter is, you're not. Nobody is unless you allow yourself to. So
Which I had
yeah,
been. That's how I'd been living. And it was really hard to realize that, like, those few times that, like, I've asked you, like, after I've been on the phone with someone or anything like that, and then be like, I come back to Richie and be like, hey, was I too harsh? I feel like I should call him back, like, apologize. I feel like I was really mean. And he's like, no, you set a boundary. Like, that's not, that's not mean. It's actually being kind to yourself. And it feels like naturally to myself, it feels wrong, but I know it's right. And I feel like I've become a stronger woman because of that, and realizing that I can stand my ground. I can be the strong headed, strong willed woman that I am. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There isn't.
I've always felt like there was something wrong with me because I wasn't submissive enough, or this, that, and the other thing, and like that. And there's nothing wrong with me. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with me, don't get me wrong, but in that regard.
Right. Okay. So um, I will fill you in a little bit. We actually moved state.
Ah, this is what you were getting at. Got it. Okay. We did. We
We
did
moved
move
state.
states.
We went from California to Washington. Um, was it an easy move, change?
No. In short, no. It was really freaking rough. Um, I was staying at home with our daughter at the time. Our stepson, my stepson, was staying with his mom until we got settled up here. And we lived in a borrowed RV for a little bit, the three of us.
Couple months.
Yeah. Stayed with your brother and his family for a couple months. It was it was a rough transition, but I remember just feeling so blessed when we finally got that first rental home and started getting on our feet a little bit. But then the company you were working for shut down, and then you had to get another job. And then I felt like it was time for me to start working because I had been home for 2 years and our daughter was old enough to go to daycare. And then she got kicked out for bad behavior. But she got her down here. And it took months for us to find childcare. There's a childcare shortage up here, which who would have found that? That's something you should think about before you have kids. Apparently, whether or not you can find childcare. And
Well, I mean, that's difficult for like just anybody that's a normie to navigate that. But for two alcoholics, or
it was a freaking mission. It was like there's several times that it was like either I just wanted to like turn tail and go back.
yeah, I
But
remember thinking a few times, man, we should just go back. That's home. That's safe. My career path was like
set.
it was set there, and it was tough.
And it may have been easier, but the reward of staying and learning all the lessons that
Yeah,
we did,
was well worth it.
it's I'm so glad we didn't give up.
Yes,
And I had told Richie like a few times too during those times. I was like, I just, especially in the very beginning when we first moved, I was like, I just can't believe that God would lead us to move, because we both felt it was a mutual decision on our parts to move our family
because you weren't running
two
from
states
anything.
away, right? And I was like, it just doesn't feel right that God would tell us, or we felt like God was moving us to come up here just to like tuck tail and go back to where we were coming from. It just didn't feel right, for me anyway. And
Likewise.
I'm really glad we stayed.
Yeah. So now that you are here in Washington, how's your community? How is your recovery community? Like, I mean, because your recovery community back in California was really good.
Hmm.
Um, I know this to be true. So you move up here, and you're like the only people you know are my brother and my sister-in-law, and we don't know anybody else. So obviously, you had to make friends.
Yeah.
Was that easy? Was that hard? Or how would you how would
Yeah.
you explain that?
In general, I think it's hard for me. I don't like opening up to people. I think that's a very common thing. Um, I like to hold people at arm's distance, but it took time. And I still have I may not kind of run with the same uh, people that I did when we first moved up here, but I still love them and respect them, and I try to keep in touch as best I can, which is not good, but I suck at that anyway. But um, I've built a group, a community of like minded women that I know I can always go to. I know I can always count on, and they can count on me, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's not said enough. I think that from my experience, I think females don't feel comfortable with females, so they
No.
naturally gravitate towards men. But I would suggest any man out there that has a little bit of experience in your recovery to guide them to women, because women know how to help women. It's that's all there is to it. Oh, am I wrong?
Our brains are just wired differently. And of course, there's like very few
Right.
exceptions. There's always exceptions to the rules. But it was told to me in the very beginning by one of my first sponsors, the men will always be there to grab your ass, but the women will be there to save it. And
No,
that's what I
yeah.
tell my sponsees too, especially ones that are like, oh, I'm getting in a new relationship. And I'm like, okay, but you're like 20 minutes sober. So, it's, and of course, I always have to say that with a grain of salt. And like, obviously, it worked out for
Well, yeah,
for me,
and
for us.
and
But
I'm not saying that, like, it's a rule, right? But I think that if you have a strong network of women and a strong network of men, I think that's always best.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying don't be friends. That's
right.
nothing,
I know.
But so, anyways, so why did you agree to do this interview with One Step Up?
Oh yeah, because I wasn't forced at all. Um, it's because I believe in it. It's
Okay.
because I believe in sharing my story. A girlfriend of mine says that she lives, or she lives her recovery loud so that other people can hear it.
Yeah, I
And
like that.
yeah, because that's how it is. Like, I am who I am. I've lived through what I've lived through, and hopefully someone else out there can learn um, from my story, like I did from other people, before it's too late, before you lose the house, the job, the family, the all the things. The bottom doesn't have to be so deep, because the bottom can always get deeper. This is 100% true. And
So
so that's why, because I believe that in spreading the word.
I really want to thank you for doing this, and I'm glad you believe in this. Um, I can't wait to interview more people. So you guys stay tuned, because we have some awesome people, awesome
It's true.
people
I know them
coming
too.
up. I hope you really tune into this, and I hope you get something out of this. That's all we're trying to do, is bring a little awareness. And if you need help, I mean, you can always send me an email. We are going to try to do a little, a little more as the show grows. But I thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Richie. Thank you for tuning in to 12 Step Up.
Thanks for
Deuces.
listening, guys.